I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. All right, what's up, world? Welcome back to I Mix What I Like. Again, I'm Jared Ball here, of course, with who shouldn't need too much of an introduction, but activist, organizer, poet, author, two black, new father. Congratulations again, and welcome back to the platform. Good to see you again. Hope all is relatively well.
Yes,
Uh,
sir. Good to be here. Yeah, it's been a. I don't think I've ever been on specifically on this one, but this should be fun. I was rewatching the one we did on the Circulating Black Dollar. I did. It's a while that's that long ago. That was like damn near 4 years ago,
yeah,
man.
and I was thinking of, I was going to start by saying, after reading this, your latest link in the show description, that this should be it. Like for these myths, this should be it. Like, but I felt that way however many years ago when so. But before we get into anything, everybody, please do like, share, subscribe, support the platform, including where you can find Black Myths podcasts. I Mix What I Like and more, still at Black Liberation Media. And uh I can't help it, but this is the recreation of what I would have wanted to be my favorite other show. The Too Black and Not Black Enough podcast.
That's
So
that should be the next book. Yeah. That's-
somewhere in there, something. So but listen, you're back again with some more greatness. And I admit, when I first saw the title, I was like, "Where is he? Where are we going with this? The kids' corner thing?" And then obviously you make it plain. But I was, uh, um, but we do want to start there. Again, the link is in the show description if you haven't read it already. And I'll pull it up here. Um, on oh, here we go. The Kids Corner Economics: What Tariffs Teach Us About Black Capitalism by Two Black on Grassroots Thinking, the revamped website,
yeah.
uh, Grassroots Thinking. I did actually mean to ask if you had something to do with that. I don't want us over here though.
No, I didn't. I didn't. Shout out to the new editor over there. I call him J. Ezra McCoy. But yeah, him and a team of others but he's been the leader of that team. Has really helped revamp it. The editing standards are definitely stronger. I mean, you saw my rough cut. He helped make it a little bit better. So shout out to them. And he just laid this out well too. Like it's a
It is, yeah.
smooth read.
We're trying to get it so we can see more of it, but yeah, he did. It looks great. So let me ask you to just lay it out first before we go any farther. Kids Corner Economics. What are the tariffs teaching us about Black capitalism?
It's funny even the way he changed the title because it was what trade and tariffs teach us about black
Oh,
cap.
that's right. Yeah, that's right.
but,
Yeah.
but so we're gonna stick with trade and tariffs. It originally was supposed to just be. I was trying to write something shorter that never happens, about 1,000 word piece, if that, and it was just gonna be what tariffs and trade teach. What tariffs teach us about the circulating black dollar. That was the original conception. But as I got into it, you know how this works. You can't really get into one of these myths without connecting
Yeah.
them to the other. So if
Very
you just
difficult.
focus on the circulating dollar and you don't talk about black capitalism or don't give any kind of foundation, then the people who don't know anything about this can't really follow you anyway. So I was like, I have to kind of give some, I guess, some prequel to it, and then I was like curious, like, well, what does it teach us about black buying power and stuff? So it ended up just being a really the way that capitalism, black capitalism is confusing to how the world works. So originally it was just like thinking about the circulating black dollar and how it doesn't really. make any sense compared to the global economy. And then it turned into, I guess, a more Marxian analysis in terms of like how it alienates and fetishizes, our labor, like the way that black capitalism specifically does that. So, want to start with sharing a video and then some definitions. The kids corner thing came late. I think I was just riffing. Also, was writing it with my kid on my lap most of the time, so there was that. But it came late because it was just like this is this. There's a one time I had a friend. This is totally unrelated to black capitalism, but he was trying to write something about anti-racism or some shit, and he came up with these like phases of bias or something like that. And I was just like, he kept trying to tweak it to make it sound radical, and I'm like, bro, this is. I was like, this would be cool if you were trying to teach this to 12-year-olds, but you're trying to teach this to grown adults. Like you just need to say the thing. Like stop trying to like instead just say oppression, say you just need to say the thing. And he was trying to use the kind of liberal anti-racist language to, and so I remember being like, this is kids corner stuff. Like if you're teaching this to 5-year-olds, which I feel like a lot of the privilege talk would be better if we're trying to explain this to children, but as adults we need more advanced understandings of the world. So similar to black capitalism takes, I think it's worse because at least he was trying to pull from a tradition. They take these very rudimentary, watered down things that might make sense, and this is hard might if you're explaining this to a child, like, black people need to share their money with other black people, and like, and if we put our money together we can purchase this, like that might make sense to children, right?
Yeah.
But because you're just trying to build blocks for them so you can't
Right.
get all the complexities. Once you're grown adults, it doesn't make any sense to be having
Yeah.
these conversations. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like, why do we? This isn't like connected to the real world at all. But you have people with PhDs and finance degrees and out here explaining this stuff, talking to black people like we're children. So
Mm.
it's just a general problem I have, not really
Mm.
with just black capitalism, but just with black thought in general, that I feel like we get relegated to the kids corner in general. We're not allowed to be involved in the actual world. And if we are allowed to be involved, it's like, well, you have to not be black to be involved in the world. But you're not allowed to actually be full yourself, black and radical and involved in the world. You have to talk to black people like we're children and like we're playing this little game. Like I say in the piece, while the white gods cut these deals above our heads, we just go by black in the corner, right? And it somehow these things have nothing to do with each other. Like this gets on my nerves in general. We've talked about before the weird friction between like the kind of cultural nationalist side and the black
Mm.
Marxist side, and either side not really understanding each other. Um, but there's always this friction where political economy is somehow divorced from black life. So black people are migrating separately, black people are in poverty separately, black people are loving each other separately, hating
Mm.
each other separately, doing something else, but then the rest of the world is happening and none of the things that happen in the world has anything to do with that. you know it's just that we don't pull our pants up, or we don't know our neighbors, or we don't, these very simple
Yeah.
explanations, what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah.
It's never
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
that has anything to do with the rest of the world. Like, so we're not somehow the people like everybody else. And you don't have to like not be black to you don't have to strip yourself of being black to be involved in the world, because you already are anyway materially. Like you can't get out of it anyway. So that's just a so I have this problem about a lot of shit. This is just, economics, black capitalism is just what I chose to focus on, because I think it exposes the way that we're not allowed to be involved in the world. So
Yeah. It's a
I'll
problem
stop there, but
everywhere.
yeah.
No, no, it's a problem everywhere. And then on both sides of that divide, that cultural and materialist side of the argument, both groups do the same thing of just associating the lived experience of everyday black people, and like both sides make that same error too. So yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Uh did you I think you got to reshare the link, right?
Yeah,
Or
I'm gonna
reshare
share it.
the
So
okay.
this. I didn't even know. I learned about this person through some. You did a Rachel. How did you say her last name? She wrote this new book, Black Capitalist. Um, you called it
Oh,
apologetics. I don't know how to say her last name.
yeah, I forgot. Yeah, yeah,
Laurier. So I was just watching the interview. I actually added this as a link. This is like one of the last links I added to the piece, but it actually I think it simplifies the point because the 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 interviewer is going to ask her about the global economy, and it's like it just she didn't even hear the question or something. So it kind of explains
Mm.
how I think these folks approach, because they know there's really no way to answer this if you get involved in like actual imperialist capitalism. You can't really explain these things. So here we go.
And yeah, it's Rachel Laria who wrote
Are
Black
you?
Capitalists, something like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's. Hold on, let me pull this. Get this up here. There we go.
And I just press play.
Yeah, yeah. You should be
Okay,
good. You want to make it full screen? Yeah. All right.
there you go.
Cool. Perfect.
So I want to talk about a term that is oftentimes overused, and that is the global economy. How do you balance the notion of participating in free market capitalism here in America without becoming part of the problem globally with respect to global imperialism and oppression in other markets based off of what is happening here?
Yeah, it's often the case if you think about capitalism as a pie, we've all got a slice of this pie. Some of us are entrepreneurs. Some of us, our orientation to capitalism is really through a kind of consumerist posture. Some of us are corporate professionals. We all have a different kind of seat and orientation to capitalism. So within an American context, and how we kind of really bring this down to the individual level is asking ourselves the question of, we vote every day with our wallets, and we participate in the economy every day on account of how we transact. So the question is, how do we do that in a way that's going to be less exploitative, less extractive, while still pursuing kind of financial freedom and economic liberation in a way that's not dependent on someone else's exploitation and extraction? And those are ways we can kind of live that ethos out at a kind of very ground level, individual level, that then kind of starts to yield different outcomes at the communal level as well.
So one of the things in your book you do is you talk
That
about
is
this.
nonsense. I'm sorry. Try to be
Go ahead.
professional
Go ahead.
sometimes, but that's just nonsense. I mean, and I can attest to this. Her book does not add any more depth, organization, knowledge, explanation. It doesn't do any more than what she just did there. But yeah, we all have a relationship to the economy. That part is true. But what is the relationship? Some of it is abject alienation, poverty, exploitation, and so on and so forth. And she's making it sound like we're just all in here. We can, we can.
Yeah, and it's like he literally asked her, "What is our role in the global economy?" And she's had nothing to say about it.
Other than we all have one. We all have one, right? And
it's just
the enslaved
insulting.
had a role on the plantation. Just there's a role to play. I mean, there's a role to play.
Just word salad, and it wasn't a bad question. I mean, for all fairness, I don't never watch this guy's show, but it was actually a fair question. Like,
I agree.
what do you have to say about the exploited relationships around the world? Because that's when it's really revealed. I mean, there's plenty here, but it's really revealed as some of that is linked in the piece when you read it around the world. Like, we'll get to it later, but there's a part in there I linked to a black business that bought Cambodian hair and sold it to black women in America.
Oh, that's one of my favorite parts. I mean, there's
Yeah.
a lot in here, and I just encourage people. We can come back to it, but since you brought it up, I'm just going to skip ahead to one of my favorite parts where you do this right here. I don't know if this isn't exactly the part that you're talking about, but it like precedes that point. But when you're talking about this global economy, to illustrate the point, say I need shrimp, tomatoes, and avocado for a dish. Whether I go to a black-owned grocery or a WASP-owned Walmart, these commodities are not grown in these stores' back lots. They're imported. It's more likely that they were shipped from India and Mexico than the U.S., regardless of whether I bought them at a black business or not. Hence, nobody's dollar stays in their community, and I know we're going to come back to that point, for 28, 19, or 17 days. Instead, a portion of the dollar leaves the neighborhood almost instantly to pay for the entire supply chain that brought the products to them to the shelf. So that's the global economy, said more clearly than what she was. I mean,
You don't even have to be like a black radical communist socialist to understand. This is what's so annoying about it. Is like, if I was a black capitalist that just cared about the actual logic of capitalism, I would be offended. Like if I took it seriously as a business owner and not as a branding exercise, as you point out in your work, and I would be offended by a lot of this stuff because it doesn't actually clarify anything, even for me as a business. Like because at the end of the day, if I sell things, particularly, I have to buy them from somewhere. I have to like have them brought to my store, or if they're on an online shelf somewhere, I have to buy things, and they're probably not all coming from America, especially if you're selling the kinds of things that Black businesses tend to sell, like hair and T-shirts and things like that. Those are not things that are made primarily in America. It's just not, you know.
And they're also not businesses that are going to produce all this kind of wealth that people are talking about.
No.
I mean, it's. But okay, so I skipped ahead. Let me let you if you want to take us back to.
I just wanted to use that to illustrate that my point that I'm open with, that Black capitalists don't generally, particularly the ones who are trying to sell it as some kind of liberation narrative. So I'm not even really talking about people who literally are just doing business day to day and are not really caught up in the narrative as you talk about in your piece. They're just like, I sell what I sell. I'm not saying they're not part of it, but that's not really the main target. The main target is the Black capitalists and the kind of ethos of Black capitalism that like this particular person was trying to do, is sell it as a liberatory framework, sell it as something that's going to save our communities, as opposed to just somebody doing business like anybody else does business and we just move on. Those are the people we're mainly talking about. So it's to show that if within their worldview, she's just an example, the global economy is not something that they really want to deal with because it kind of collapses the entire worldview, right? So they have to limit it. And notice how she got straight to consumption, right? Which is like the last point of any kind of supply chain. So like your work, that's why I open, you can scroll down with the quote, I think, from your book about how this always migrates us into a consumptive thing. So yeah, rather than supporting calls from among Black political movements of radical redistribution of existing tremendous national wealth, power is redefined away from political power, redistribution, and towards consumption. It always reduces us to consumers. We don't work, we don't thing, we don't have nothing to do with that. All we do is buy shit. Like even when you open with that in your piece with that debate you had with, is it Malvo, Marion Malvo? Was that how you say it?
Julianne Malvo. Yeah.
I don't want to disrespect my elders, excuse me. But like I had to get that one in.
Yeah, that was
good. But I'm saying, like, you know, even when I remember that back and forth, she was like, well, Black people can't afford to go on strike. You know, we can't afford to take those kind of risks. All we have is the power of our buying. So as we get later on in the piece, again, I don't want to jump too far ahead. It's just like there's a supply chain where things are taken from the ground, things are, you know, refined, things are packaged, things are shipped, and then they arrive on the shelf. And then after all that exploitation is done, then we're supposed to zoom in with our Black buying power. It doesn't make any sense, you know. So like the whole process, we have nothing to do with. Even if we help produce that thing on the shelf, it's just when we come in with our dollars, right? Like that. So that's my. So I'm gonna sound annoyed this whole interview because it really does just get on my nerves. So also we want to honor National Black Business Month, right? Because that's what this is. So.
Yeah, that's what I was. I was like, I keep forgetting that and then I even just Googled it now, and because I keep forgetting to look up the history that apparently it started in 2004, and I don't know enough about the founders, but I'd be interested to look into that more. But yeah, this is National Black Business Month, not Black August.
No,
this is National Black Business Month, which I just feel like, and then they say the same thing, that they say that they started it in August to commemorate Frederick Douglass.
Yeah.
And all right.
And the struggles of Black business and
this, and but
so this is prosperity gospel more than it's, you know, any kind of actual economics. So I just want to lay out a few definitions first before we, because otherwise I'm just going to keep jumping back and forth. So again, trade and the question was what trade and tariffs teach us. I know the title says tariffs because that's the kind of hot button topic right now, which we'll get into that too. So I just want to give definitions for things so people are not, because that's another thing about Black capitalism. We were talking about in text messages, like how it's a floating signifier, so you can kind of just fill it with whatever vibe you're on that day. and you don't have to really define anything. We don't have to have agreed upon views about anything. So trade is very simply goods and services imported and exported between countries. It's very simple. So if I want to sell a T-shirt to somebody, and let's say Cambodia, I want to sell them a T-shirt in Cambodia, that would be considered a trade because I'm selling it to another country. And then, or if I want to import it, then I can do that. Now, obviously, that's not normally going to happen between me as an individual and somebody in Cambodia. That's large corporations. That's ports that actually transport things in and then they get bought. That's what we call the supply chain, but that's just business done, both goods and services done between countries. That's so the tariff is when you can slap some kind of tax on those goods or services, right? So if I am, like we're seeing with Trump, that's kind of pushed this into the conversation. If you were doing business with China and Trump is like, we're going to put I think he got as high as 145%, which is important to note that after like a 50% tariff, it's actually irrelevant. Like these numbers aren't serious at that point. The countries just don't do business with each other after 50%. So once you start going to these other numbers, it's really just for headlines. So that means that the product that is coming in is going to be imposed a tax on it beyond just its original cost, right? So that's simple. So the United States post World War II, particularly under its kind of rules-based order, if anybody's with the like Bretton Woods, and I don't want to get too deep into that because we'll be in a whole other history. But with the Bretton Woods Agreement, like post World War II, the United States became the global reserve currency. What that meant was that people trade in U.S. dollars. That's why the United States is allowed to go in so much debt, because people trade in U.S. dollars. So the rest of the world kind of finances that debt by keeping that dollar floating. And in the 70s, they came off the gold standard because even upon doing that, the United States was still going into debt because it was doing too much wars. So it came off the gold standard. You get the petrodollar. That's where there was basically an agreement between Saudi Arabia that there would be like the oil would be redistributed within dollars or dollar denominations. So that kept that was, and then in exchange for that, they got protection by the U.S. military. That's a very oversimplified history. Laundering Black Rage, our book, we go into that in much more detail. So the world is ran by U.S. trade, and White Capital, we say, wanted to do what's called free trade, because in that post World War II moment, I was coming out of this like decolonizing era. And I just mean that strictly on the sense that countries weren't formally colonized. Obviously, we know they are in other ways. So it used to be like, if I'm the French and I colonize this country, like this country benefits me, and I have tariffs on it, in relationship to if Germany or somebody else wants to come in and deal with that country. Upon this new order, this like neo-colonial order that then becomes neoliberalism, we want free trade, as in there are no tariffs, there are no protections on products. Any corporation, any company can come in and get what they want without any kind of anything imposed on them. So a protection would be, this is my colony, I get to trade, get what I want for free. You're not from here, you got to pay a tax. Free trade is we all get to rampage and plunder this place as much as we want. Maybe we have an advantage because we're United States and these are dollars, but everybody can kind of get in and take advantage of this place, right? Like that's the way. So free trade has been the thing. That's how you get these trade agreements. The one people probably know the most is NAFTA. That was between Canada, United States, and Mexico. And that's when Mexico had their own country, had their own kind of industrial base, and they had their own thing going to some extent. And then the United States cut a deal where auto manufacturing companies, even like retail goods, like Walmart is now their biggest retailer in Mexico post NAFTA. This is in '94, and some agricultural businesses can sell their stuff in that country. What a tariff can do on the positive side, if you are the country, is you can keep the foreign companies out by taxing them, so you can build up your local or national product. So instead of like what happened in Haiti, where a bunch of rice was dumped by the United States in Haiti, that basically just gets rid of their entire rice industry. you can tax them, and that way you can keep a competition between your local and the foreign companies. But free trade is, we don't want any of that. And then free trade also facilitates this neo-colonial order, because you can say, all right, now you need to sell off all your government or your stuff. You need to sell off you need to privatize everything. You get in these arrangements with these companies where they can actually have like a third party court that if you tax them, they can force you to repay them.
They called it Chapter 11. I used to feel like I was offended by that. Like
Yeah.
having gone bankrupt myself back in the day, I was like, how dare you? You going to use Chapter 11,
Yeah.
my bankrupt clause, as a way to protect against anybody using democracy to protect their workers or their products. I was like, they so
yeah, it's wild. It's wild. So like most of this we don't get any news about at all. Like unless you're reading like deep financial stuff, we don't get any news about these things that are happening. Unless you're like into that, you're not gonna know. And these things are happening all the time. They were happening before Trump. Biden actually tried to do some tariffs on China. They weren't as wild, but because the United States is realizing that the very free trade that they put in process is starting to screw them over, because China benefited from it. So now they're like, oh, and then other countries are starting to build up their own industrial base, and they don't need the United States, and that pushes the dollar down. So Trump, in his kind of aloof incompetence, is trying to somehow bring back, and he claims there's really no evidence of it. Like actually, as of just last month, 11,000 manufacturing jobs were lost. Previous month, 15,000 manufacturing jobs were lost. So, but they claim they're trying to reindustrialize. That's the propaganda, at least, regardless of what's actually happening. There's no real evidence of this. But so they're trying to. So Trump's ultimate vision, when you listen to him explain it, is he thinks that he can replace taxes with tariffs. So if you tariff all the products coming in, that produces revenue, and then you can cut taxes, right? That's the logic. But if you're the person that has to buy these things and the prices go up, it's not going to keep up with whatever taxes get cut. And they're not really cutting your taxes anyway, right? They're cutting taxes for rich folks, as they always do. So like that's the basis of it.
But it sounds good to be able to tell your audience, I'm cutting taxes, and they don't read the fine print. It's not your taxes.
No.
It's my taxes.
Yeah, and so the New York Times ran a piece, I think last week, claiming that there is more revenue coming in. Even New York Times economics sometimes is awful, because I'm like, well, there's more revenue coming in, but where's this revenue coming from? Is it actually coming from the other countries, or just because the prices go up and there's more revenue that we're paying anyway? Like, so it's a tax on us one way or the other, because a tariff is a tax. So you can't really replace taxes with tariffs, because you're just replacing one tax with another tax. Like it's just so there's no like replacing it with one.
And then all of them, to your point, well, particularly the way he's doing it, Trump, that is, negatively impact the consumer.
Yeah.
That's this all powerful consumer, back to your previous one, like
yeah, the thing that's supposed to save our community, But so a few more terms and I'll get into the piece, but like gross domestic product, again, that's just a calculation of like all products and services that are done. Gross domestic product is not really the best metric in my opinion.
I still got to think for that. It's not wealth. It's not a measurement of income inequality. That's all I'm trying to get. It's like,
no, that's a good time, because it's not. So like Ben Norton, who does a geopolitical report, talks about how purchasing power parity is different than just like you have to adjust gross domestic product for purchase power parity. So it's like, so when the United States says we do this many $1 trillion in gross domestic product and another country does less, the question is how much can they actually purchase with their money in their country versus the other? So when you actually make that adjustment, China leads the world at gross domestic product if you make the adjustment for purchasing parity. So over the entire world, there was 100 as of 2024, $111 trillion in gross domestic product the world produced itself. It's according to the World Bank. So even when you take this silly buying power thing, 1.8 trillion, even if it were accurate, is nothing in $111 trillion, even if it were a thing. even if it was a sovereign pool of wealth and all of that, even if it were that, it's still nothing.
Say that number again. What's that global GDP again?
111 trillion in global GDP. That's World Bank. 111 trillion dollars as of last year.
Good
That's
Lord.
how much that's how that means. Everyone, like you always say, everybody attributes or everybody contributes to that, right? Like that's not just, now where that actually goes, where the benefits and the profits go, that's a different conversation. But I'm saying that is the world. That is what's done through the entire world.
It goes to them 800 people worth 6.2 trillion.
Yeah.
That's who's sitting on it. Them 800 people. It's crazy. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Keep going. Yeah.
No. So when they say trade, when Trump comes out and says we have a trade deficit with the country, it sounds worse than what it actually is. All that means that you might import more than this country. You may import more from the country than you export to it. So it means that United States products and services are at a deficit in terms we don't send as many products and services over there as they send over here. That's the logic. But a lot of the reason that the United States runs a trade deficit with a lot of countries is because to get those products cheap, you have to run a trade deficit because they have to be able to purchase U.S. dollars to get those dollars, or they have to be able to purchase U.S. dollars to then make those trades in the first place, because that's how you trade in U.S. denominations. So they run a deficit so the currency is not too high, so the countries can purchase it. By putting tariffs on it, now these countries are not able to purchase the dollars to even make the trades, which in many ways forces these countries to look for alternatives. So the fact that Trump's saying we want to de-dollarize, in many ways this will actually help, or we want to not de-dollarize. Trump is saying we want to build up the dollar and stop de-dollarization. In many ways, this will actually lead to more de-dollarization because the countries just have they're like, we can't do business with you because you're putting even a 15% tariff might be too much for a poor country. And then also, trade deficits aren't always an inherently bad thing, and just even a personal level. Like I think I saw somebody, I'm not a fan of the person, so I won't say it, but he's like, I have a trade deficit with my barber, like basically like you don't exchange it. You don't like be like, okay, no, you pay your barber, he cuts your hair. Like there is no like I import some service to my barber. It's like, no, I'm just pay him as a consumer and that's it. So trade deficits, if a country has something you want, you might run a trade deficit with them because they may not be able to produce all these other things. And there's really nothing you can help them with other than just buying the product. And that helps keep them afloat when we move on. So we have this situation where the world is set up in, this kind of renter versus, this renter class of people who like own things. And then we all just have to buy from them. And that's basically renting, right? So you have like the rentier situation where in like somewhere in Africa, where like a corporation might own a mining field or land or done something of that nature, and that country has to stay poor and just continue to mine those products. And then the corporation doesn't even have to do anything other than just get the rent paid off of them, rent paid to them. And then when that product gets sold here in the United States at a much higher rate, then they get paid off of that too. No one ends up owning anything in that process. So this is all this stuff. I don't want to keep going on there because I can get into all that all day. But I'm saying this is the stuff. Black capitalism doesn't touch any of this. Oh, girl had a chance to even touch a little bit of it. Don't want nothing to do with it.
So just to your point, you referenced him. I just happened to have finished this morning the second half of the latest Ben Norton, Michael Hudson interviews.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the exact antithesis to the clip you just played. And I was literally thinking of it. One of the things that does piss me off, and it's interesting you're approaching it this way on our right now, because I'm walking the dog this morning listening to that podcast, and I'm thinking, this is infuriating that, with all due respect to Ben and Michael Hudson, they're not targeting Black audiences.
No.
And Black audiences get fed the nonsense you're over here criticizing. And I'm like, they're over here really breaking stuff down.
Yeah.
They're getting into all of this stuff. And I mean, and anyway, so it was super frustrating. So yeah.
No, it is because even on the so-called left, this is a problem too. Like again, Black people are brought in to do Black Argus, similar to how it is with liberals. We're all brought in to talk about revolutionary stuff for fun. And then we go sent to the kids' corner there as well, right?
That's facts.
Like we're not
or
really
something specifically happens to Black people, police or something in a film or something, and they're like, okay, get the Black friends we got.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but when it comes to economic conditions and this, then they'll we gotta go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so it's the same. It's a similar dynamic. It doesn't die just because we call ourselves Black Marxists or radicals or anarchists or whatever. It doesn't really. It doesn't. It's still the same dynamic. In some ways, I would say maybe even worse because liberals seem to call Black folks more than some white leftists do. To be honest with you, so so now we're not really brought into serious immaterial conditions about people. It's a very specific. Tell us what's happening in the kids' quarter over there where Black people play. Like this is, and even Black folks themselves, unfortunately, carry on like the thing where we'll do that. We won't even have these conversations enough. We'll be talking more about the movie or the incident that occurred with the police officer. And again, that stuff matters. So it's not to say that is inherently a kids' corner topic. It's just why is that where we get relegated to? I think that's a question we need to ask more often, and it's like even when we talk about the police officer or the movie, it's like even when you want to get into the political economy of that stuff, because there is plenty of political economy in those topics.
Now it's time to wrap.
Yeah. We don't really want to. So there's a few shows where I've been able to like get into that, and I went on one of my, I guess, my favorite white leftist shows, Rev Left, where I made this point and we were talking about it. Like, yeah, we're not really allowed to, like I was like, I appreciate you for having me on, because a lot of times we're not invited to even have these like more in-depth conversations about political economy and how the world is moving, and how race and class are not, like, we've already solved this problem that y'all keep arguing about with identity politics and stuff. We already resolved race and class and all of that. We already figured that out on our side. Y'all still arguing about it, so it's like we don't, we have plenty of scholars for decades, hundreds of years really, who've already resolved this question, and y'all are still having these conversations. Like, so it's like this would be better for all of us if we would just stop doing this weird plantation thing. That's
so annoying. You're right. Yeah. I mean, it really is. It really is. Like, I already had this has already been like we back again. And it is weird when you mentioned, like, because I remember where I was sitting in the parking lot of my daughter's soccer practice when taping one of the first Black myths on this circulating dollar issue, and I'm like, you already saw, like, you already figured this out, like it's already, and then literally every semester. I mean, in 2 weeks, my semester starts again. Somebody's going to say something like that. One of my students is going to bring it up again, and it's going to be like, and then I'm going to ask, well, who are you listening to? And they're going to run down all the same podcasts and YouTube channels, and it's going to be like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
So
we're so that's where that's the kids corner thing is. Like, we just did a very, and I just did a very small, oversimplified run through of these things. Like, again, there's way more to say on it, but that's just giving you a little sense of how the world is working. So what does buying power or circulation have to do with it? So the way the piece is framed, to kind of get into the piece, is when we say, what does it teach us about Black capitalism? We use those two myths as a kind of like primary myths of Black capitalism, because they work in conjunction with each other. The myths being the circulating Black dollar and Black buying power. But before we get to that, we talk about how how Black capitalism was the solution offered to us in 2020 when George Floyd was murdered. And as we say in our book Laundered Black Rage, the point was, the idea was, I guess, people thought we could buy our way out of a chokehold. Right, like that was the poor logic of it all. So I know in that one episode you did last week, we talked about that study that that came out. It was a Pew study where Black people actually believed that Black business would be the best way towards racial equality, supporting Black business.
That was so wild.
So we believe that it was, I think it said, Black is supporting Black business as a second most, was the second most extremely, quote unquote, extremely very effective solution higher than protesting and volunteering. You know, in terms of helping Black people move towards equality in the United States. Like, and then it's and the only thing that trumped it was voting. so so it just showed you that, you know, despite all the so-called rage on the streets, this is why I always say I think 2020 was overrated in terms of the way people gas it up, because they take a snapshots of radicalism and try to apply that to the general populace, and that's not really what happened, in my opinion. um, but you know, buying black became a solution to watching Black people get killed by the police, which has always drive me crazy as well. That's how Laundering Black Rage got written, was just that initial observation, like, how does this make any sense, right? So despite the fact that, you know, Black businesses, as you've done in your own work, only make up 0.3% of all business revenue, or that Walmart itself has more revenue than all Black businesses put together. And it says 2020 there, but I actually found a stat as of 2024, so this is still true.
Oh wow. Okay,
Um,
even better.
but so we were sold Black capitalism, even though folks weren't using, because at the time people had to sound more radical. So folks didn't say Black capitalism; they were saying we're going to close the racial wealth gap. You know, we're going to build Black wealth, financial freedom, financial literacy,
Generational wealth.
yeah,
That's my latest. That's for some reason the one bothering me more than anything lately is that one. That, and then to your point, I mean, just again, like, I know not everything is about whites, but I think these stats are really important. Like, Walmart is still just one white-owned family business. That if you even read what is said about white small businesses vis-a-vis Walmart, like, Walmart has wiped out like them. So like, whites can't even use a white small business capitalist model or whatever to get to where they think they need. Like, Walmart is already doing it. There's only and Amazon is right there. Like, there's only one of these people. Like, you can't.
yeah.
But then Black people have to figure out how to overcome all of that and work past this
by just buying shit, right? Like, again, the because again, like we talked about NAFTA earlier, Walmart became the biggest retailer in Mexico after NAFTA was passed, because Walmart had the ability to be involved in those negotiations, so that market could be opened up to them, and they weren't going to be taxed and tariffed by Mexico, so they could move their services over there. Name a Black business that has the power to do that. You know, like,
Listen, oh man, forgive me for this. I was even thinking of doing a part 2 to the common and Black thought progressive thing about Black home ownership, because in that Hudson and Ben Norton part 2 discussion, they make the point that you were raising here about the rentiers, rentier class that is actually antithetical to even classical capitalist economics, which I thought was a fascinating part of their discussion.
Yep.
But
the whole point was to break away from the renter thing.
The whole point was to get the renters out of here, the landlords out of here.
Was to get out of that situation.
That's right. Yeah. And then, but they make the point that they don't, not specific to Black people, but they make the point that to my point, while Black people are being told to improve their condition through home ownership, Michael Hudson's over there telling Ben Norton that ain't no homes to buy.
Yeah, BlackRock's buying
BlackRock and all of them buying up all they're buying up all the homes. There's no homes. Yeah. So even in the context of whiteness, there's no this whole thing of we're gonna get in here and flip houses. And it's like, I think he said 60% are institutional investors are buying up all the real estate or something crazy like that. So there is no homes to buy.
No.
Anyway, and then their point is also, we shouldn't want that. You can't have a situation where everybody's trying to be a landlord. It's like
no. And again, if the thing is, if Walmart was Black, Walmart would still want to do what they did in NAFTA, which so it's still not benefiting the masses of Black people, even if Walmart were Black. Like,
and it's the same thing in terms of business. Yeah. Like, if you can't, if you like. Not every, like, there's Norton and Hudson were saying you can't have a situation where everybody's trying to be a landlord, because then obviously just think about it. Same thing with business. You can't have everybody trying to start a business, and that's what they
No.
keep telling Black people to do. So
No.
what about the rest of us who are supposed to consume and be the customer? If we're all owning businesses, who's
Doesn't make
buying?
any sense.
Anyways.
It doesn't make any
All
sense.
right.
Somebody has a. I mean, even though most Black businesses don't have employers, somebody has to work at some of these places, right? Like, you know, so it's like it doesn't. Again, how do things get moved from across the world? That's the part that these folks never touch. So like that's where circulating is just totally, you know, a
Oh, I
joke.
love what you did with that too, by the way. I don't know if you meant to get to that. I don't want to rush if I'm
No, we
skipping
can
ahead.
move because I don't really have much more to say. Just in terms of 2020, on the terms of that part, 2020 was Black capitalism was presented as a solution, and again, we use these two myths. I keep saying we like I wrote the piece for somebody else, but I use these two myths: circulating Black buying power and circulating the Black dollar and Black buying power as the lens to look through the silliness of it all and this
This
kid's
was the
corner.
part I like. Right. Sorry. This was the part I like what you did. We can back up so you can explain more the point. But I like that you repurposed circulating in a more accurate way. Talk about this is circulating ad revenue to catch customers. It's not a circulating dollar, but
yeah.
Let me just back up so you can. Did you?
Yeah, we could walk through the circulating part now because I think this will start to get to more of the political economy in terms of where to start. I mean, we can deal with that base quote the one that the John Ray economic development, the big quote on there, because that's where all this comes from.
Is it this one?
No, it would be under the myth of circulating dollar explained. So where the barbershop picture is, and then just the one in bold.
Oh, here we go. Yeah. Right. Sorry. Right.
So this is the initial claim that, you know, where we get. So for those of you who may not know, and if you don't know, good for you. Like if you're young and you never had to live through this, good for you. But my point is, like, even if you've never heard this claim, is a way that it still articulates to people's logics, even if they don't know the actual claim. They're still like, well, we got to circulate our dollar, even if they've never heard the 17 days, 6 hours. They still like, well, we got to circulate the dollar in the community, and no one ever explains what circulation means. It's just like, I guess so. Sounds cool. You know what I mean?
On some level, it's like I hope it's right because this is a much easier way to struggle than actual struggle. Yeah. Like I think that is part of it too. But yeah, it's like, and I do think you're right. I don't think anybody avoids this on some level. I find it hard to believe that anybody, particularly in Black America, I'll say specifically, I find it hard to think that anyone avoids this, even without, as you say, hearing this point here.
Yeah, most people probably have never seen this quote, actually. Like most of the people that push this idea have probably never seen where it originally was taken from. I would almost guess that they've never seen it. But like I said earlier at the top of that, when I said, well, you go to any barbershop, podcast, you're going to hear some version of, we need to be like the Jews and support each other, or we need to be like the Chinese. You're going to hear some version of it. And I think, like you talk about in narrative, I think one of the most powerful parts of narrative is, even if the original narrative is not what people remember, there's these fragments of it that trickle down to the average person that even if they don't know where the source of it is, they start thinking and talking like that. So even if the average person doesn't call themselves Black capitalists, if they don't really they're not even deep into all of this stuff, their kind of general logic is still framed with these ideas just in their regular everyday conversation. Like, we got to circulate the dollar. You know, what the Jews did this, and the Chinese do that. Like, because it's just said all the time.
All the time.
You know, like, I used to do it too. Like, yeah, you know, why did the Chinese got Chinese stops in our neighborhood? And we, you know, like, and
no, I did the same thing. I'm basically saying to my father, like, why didn't you do what my mother's people did? And
yeah, I mean,
they did it, and then,
yeah.
And then you know, but as the joke also goes, I'm born to the last poor Jew. So like it stopped immediately. The myth stopped immediately. Anyway, let me just read what you have here so for everybody just so we're all.
Yeah.
As you point out here, the circulating black dollar was given its wobbly foundation by financial advisor Brooke Stevens in her 1996 book, Talking Dollars and Making Sense, a wealth building guide for African Americans. The claim emerges on page 18, importantly, as I'm adding here, without citation.
No
Quote,
citation.
John Ray, an economic development specialist in Washington, D.C., did a study that traced the flow of dollars through comparative ethnic communities. I'm sorry, it's laughable even as I start to read it again. Anyway, Ray found that in the Asian community, a dollar circulates among community banks, brokers, shopkeepers, and business professionals for up to 28 days before it is spent on outsiders. In the Jewish community, the circulation period was 19 days. In the WASP community, 17 days. But in the African American community, 6 hours, end quote.
Yeah. So when you put it that way, obviously we look like we're the worst out of the group. We're bums. We don't support each other. It's always just a quick aside. I always find this interesting that people will make these claims at an event where Black people are supporting each other. Like, it's always the funniest part. Like, you could be in church, you could be at the park. It's rarely ever like just you and one person. It's like we're at a whole event with nothing.
Or you'll be in the Black barber shop.
Yeah.
Spending money at the beauty salon.
Spending money, talking, having fun, and we're literally having this conversation. It's just always funny to me that, we do that. Like, you could literally be in the midst of folks. Everybody around you is spinning black and talking black, but man, we don't support each other.
We support one another. We hate each other.
Like, that's usually the first thing I point out. Like, bro, we're right here.
We're right here. I literally just gave you $30 for this shape up.
Yeah.
Why are you telling me I'm not supporting you?
So, yeah.
Yo, that is crazy. That's, and then I love this point here. When what was his name? Is it Spriggs, the late Howard University economist? Because I remember years ago, I asked him about this buying power thing and the Asian this and the Jewish that. And he kind of looked at me like I was crazy too. He was like, we don't even have measurables for that. Like, it don't there. And as you say, there is no Asian community. There's Chinese, Japanese, Koreans, Vietnamese, Indians. And each group carries its own history, class stratification, et cetera. And so it's like, but yeah, it's.
And like it says there, Japan also colonized half of these groups.
I mean, so
much for unity there. You know what I mean?
I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it looks a little, exactly.
And then what she said, WASP, I found interesting because it's like that's a very old term, and I don't know how you quantify white American Protestants.
White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. I don't know how you would quantify that either, and I don't know how you distinguish that. So then they go to the Catholic community, and they have a separate set there that doesn't, But what you brought this years ago that. And then Louise and Story in their book got even more with Brooke a little bit, I think. But you had already pointed out that Brooke don't have she's even saying like, I don't really know where this is coming from.
When she was confronted about it, she had nothing to explain. They were like, "Where's the study from?" I don't know.
It was
a nonprofit that I don't remember the name to. The guy that she said that the guy she claims John Ray when it was looked into, there's no record of this person. He didn't work where she said he worked. They couldn't find him. There's nothing in any database. And I still try to deal with the claim on his face that even if this were a thing, and that's what these paragraphs are about, it still doesn't make any sense anyway. But there's no evidence of this claim. And thanks for bringing that up. There's nothing. Like, she's been confronted about it and she was unable to produce it, but then it became this myth that everybody started saying. And as I know, like, I was even looking in a Detroit legislator, politicians were using these numbers.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they say it like it's a gotcha. It's an applause line for people. They feel like, oh, wait till I drop this on them.
Yeah, and
And
I
then,
had
like you
to,
said, people literally supporting them will be in the audience
yeah.
like, oh.
And I think I said that. I think I said at the top, like these claims are often made in front of what did I say?
Yeah, you
Often
did.
citing it in interviews in town halls full of black folks. Like that's what I'm saying. So
Right.
it's like you're doing this literally, like y'all niggas ain't shit, and it's like there's a bunch of people in the room, and that's how you're talking to us. Like it's just we really shouldn't even accept that kind of disrespect, honestly. But it's just like that is a regular way that this is discussed, despite this making no sense. So you and I basically did this a few years ago. Everything that's here, we literally that's why this part was easy to write, because this is research is already done pretty much. Like, but what I was trying to expand it beyond just those points, because I think there's the tariffs conversation and the trade introduces another question in terms of what is circulation, right? So it's like you can go back up to
Oh,
the supply chain simplified area, like right before that. Um, but it's like the like we talked about back then, no economist uses these terms anyway. Like no
right.
economist says
Right.
circulate. Like this is not a thing, you know.
And they
So,
don't use buying power in the way it's used. They don't use the way they don't.
no.
None of these things. To your point earlier, it's purchasing power parity or some other
Mhm.
use for the phrase. Like it's not you. It's only when targeting black people that it becomes this something else, and
Yeah.
it's super frustrating. So yeah.
So yeah, there's no money doesn't stay in a community. That's not. I mean, even on a basic level, like if I just came to your house and I purchased, I don't know, I bought your TV, and I went home with the TV and I went to my neighborhood and you kept it and you got the money like that, and then that dollar is good. Your dollar, whatever you took from that money, is going to be spent somewhere else. Like it doesn't stay in your house. Like it wouldn't make
Right.
any sense. It wouldn't benefit you to just keep the $100 in your house. Like you need to go buy. You got bills to pay or something like that, right? So it doesn't make any sense. Money doesn't stay in a community. If I go to Walmart and I buy something, yeah, some of that money goes to the wages of those poor workers that have to work in this neighborhood. And then the rest of it is going to pay for the food on the shelf that came from somewhere. And that's what this example here is explaining, is money is moving in and out. It circulates in and out because the goods that we want are not made in our neighborhoods. And that's not even really a bad thing. You don't want a neighborhood that has to produce everything that it needs. Right.
That's the other thing. Exactly. I mean, imagine if black people had to produce. I mean, think about everything that we buy, even if it's just the stuff that we quote unquote need and not all the silly shit we want.
Yeah.
If it's, are we going to have a black shoelace maker, a black
Yeah.
glasses maker, a black t-shirt maker, computer maker, microphone cover maker? Like, it's like at some point you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's very inefficient to do that. And it's like, so what, and then think about it, if every black neighborhood in a city produced everything that they needed, it would just be like they would be over if they were even able to produce it, which that's a whole other thing.
A whole other
Where you're getting
impossibility,
the
right?
tools to produce that stuff anyway.
Exactly.
You know, where's the land space, all that. But even in
How many
some
factories like
but even in some mythical sense, if you could produce everything, it would be overproduction. You'd have way more shit.
Yeah.
You'd have nobody to give it to. You know, and
who's
then
gonna buy it?
like,
That's the other exactly. Who's gonna buy it? I mean, and then you immediately start figuring out, oh, this is why people export factories and import cheap labor. This is why they do the tariffs and taxes, because they're all trying to fit and ultimately what they're all trying to do is set up a result where the quote unquote wealth that is supposed to be in a quote unquote community is among the 800 people worth $6 trillion.
Yeah. Because even if you, me, and a few other people, let's say everybody on BLM lived in the same neighborhood, we wouldn't be rich just because we lived in the same neighborhood. Like we would have to be exploiting the rest of the world, and then we could be a rich neighborhood because we exploit the rest of the world. But if we all move, if everybody that is watching this and everybody that is on our channel move to the same neighborhood, we don't automatically become rich or wealthy or anything just because we live there. It's the money is coming back to us because we got money circulating all over the world.
No, and then all that in this country, that just becomes another hood. And then and then we just all in the hood again, or in a new hood, and having the same arguments.
BLM hood, yeah. But we're not, there's no scenario where just by us living the same neighborhood. So we can reread this again. I'll read it this time, but to illustrate the point, say I need shrimp, tomatoes, avocados for a dish, whether I go to a black-owned grocery store or a WASP-owned Walmart. That was a pun at this whole WASP silliness that she said. These commodities are not grown in the store's back lots. To the point we just made, Walmart is not going to grow everything at the retail location. That's not how this works. Walmart's not going to produce everything behind Walmart. It's going to have to come from somewhere else, right? Like, that's just logic. So when I looked it up, those specific products actually are shipped from India and Mexico. That's more than the majority of shrimp, tomatoes, and avocados are made. In terms of avocados, that's Mexico, and I think shrimp was primarily India, and then tomatoes is Mexico, right? So like
even, and I think I'm stealing this
on that. If you click on that, it'll give you. It's called Visual Capitalism. They actually show you. It actually might be helpful.
This one,
yeah, it'll show you like how much money comes from, or how much money these products make. There's a visual graph there that gives people. See, tomatoes, 2.8 billion, 2.58 billion. Avocados, Mexico. Yeah. Peppers.
So even Bubba Gump would have been run out of business because they'd have been getting the shrimp cheaper from India.
Yeah. I mean, again, some of these products the United States produces as well, but some of like even there with the beef, like the best type of steaks comes out of
Chile.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you get to see, that's a visual graph of like where things actually come from.
Oh, so if you eat fish, you basically you underwriting China.
Yeah.
Traders.
I think this says like about 70 to 80% of all seafood comes from somewhere else. The United States doesn't produce most of its seafood.
Yeah, I mean China, Canada, the Canadians got it a lot too. Yeah. I don't see it. I don't see a lot of U.S. flags. Period. Is that on point? Is that on purpose, or are they?
I think some of that they're just trying to show you where the stuff come from. Like some of that, when you read through the fine print, there's stuff that the United States produces, but those are like the top imports of different categories. Like, so that's just top imports. So it's not the United States doesn't do any of this. It's just that there's others things that are imported in.
Right.
Like this is just how. But again, black capitalism never deals with this because a black business doesn't get you out of that supply, like that whole means of production supply chain. It just doesn't do that.
Right. You would still have to, with a black-owned business, get involved on that.
You would have to own. You would have to have a farm. You'd have to have You'd have to have shipping containers at ports. You'd have to have the ability to extract things from the ground in terms of products like, phones and stuff. You'd have to have planes. You'd have to have control of the entire production chain, the entire supply chain, as it says there, to actually for it all to be black, And I don't even know if that would be a good thing or not. But I'm just saying you would have to own the means of production, which is what we always come back to with capitalism. Like, but if black folks own that means of production as like individual black people owned it, that doesn't necessarily mean, we're going to be in a great position here. Right. So it's like, but again, the circulation thing this is actual circulation, is things moving from one country to another, being shipped and imported and exported. That's the circulation that's really happening. Because I was watching our old episode and we used the example of a storefront and how you have the store that then sells the TV, and the TV has investors from here. But even that we just dealt with mainly on a national scale. But on an international scale, you also have a lot of these things that are imported, from elsewhere. I mean, you have car pieces that parts are made in the United States and they get imported up to Canada, then they get exported down to, to wherever else, and just so on and so on and so forth, right? Like, it's just like this happens all the time, and this is the actual circulation that is occurring. It's commodities moving across borders, not even just money. So this doesn't explain, like, circulation explains nothing. Like the way it's been brought up, it doesn't explain anything. And it's like, this isn't Notice I've not said anything about, seizing the state or anything. I'm just literally giving y'all basic economics of how capitalism works. So that's why it's so annoying is that black capitalists don't even give black people a basic understanding of capitalism,
At all.
let alone any other alternatives. You know,
And you know, and I know I continue to get joked about this, but one of the reasons why I was on some level willing to engage even like somebody like JT the pocket watcher is because I felt like even this dude, like he is a pro-capitalist, you know, if not fully ADOS, whatever. He's like very wedded to this thing, but he is at least explaining to his audience how this thing actually works.
yeah.
So he's promoting it, but he's at least being, I think, fairly honest in how this thing works, and ends up being, you know, in many ways played against his own audience, like how black people are the ones suffering for. But he's at least trying to say, look, this you can't run off with the fantasies that you are helping us get through here today. You have to at least have. And I do admit, you know, having a little bit of room for that, just given how much, as you keep pointing out correctly, there's none of that. Everything is just pure fantasy.
You can't get to socialism, in my opinion, or communism or anything that like that without even understanding capitalism. Because why would you even want to do those things if the existing system is fine? There's no reason to even want to try that. So that's why most of Marx's work isn't even about communism. It's about why,
Exactly.
it's capital. That's why it's called capital. So it's like most of it is like, this shit doesn't work. Let's try something else. Like that's a simplified version of it. So if you can't even explain to people how the world works and why your position in it is meant to reproduce the conditions that you find yourself in every day, and there's no way to remap this where it's going to produce a better position, then you can say, let's try this, or let's even if we're going to do forms of capitalism, let's try to mix it up and bring in more socialist components to lead us towards transition towards that. You can't even get to that if you don't have any understanding. So go up one paragraph. I do want to. We were talking about, or up
This one?
the one with the Cambodia. I do want to read that because we were talking about that earlier.
Oh yeah.
It's right under the box, the supply chain box.
Oh, here it is. Here it is. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's just like, this is just a restate the point, and then we can move on really from. But the same reality rings true for any business that relies on imported goods. No amount of financial literacy, and this is shout out to Jay for putting these things in bold. No amount of financial literacy or buying black can overcome where items are shipped from. This is proven, whether that be the sew and weave shaved off the heads of poor women in Cambodia, only to be sold to black-owned hair salon. And that piece is literally documented how there's a black woman who owns a hair salon and they buy hair from Cambodia.
Yeah.
And she talks literally about how it's an alternative to keep women out of the sex trade by selling their hair. That's how bad it gets. And then she'll teach some of these women how to be managers over the business that she owns, because she says she does feel conflicted about the ethics of it. But you have girls who are selling their hair for $20, $30. They have to chop their hair off so they don't get taken into something else. Like those are the conditions that you're dealing with. And then we have the cheap clothing developed in Bangladesh, only now to be sold to black-owned fashion store. The copper conductor made in China, deployed by the black-owned electrician firm. The white liquor containing a fermentable sugar source from Brazil, now sipped at the black-owned bar. When Trump slaps tariffs on products from any of these countries listed, our pockets are further squeezed because most companies in the supply chain can pass the cost on to the consumer. This is true even if, quote, and this is from Stevens, banks, brokers, shopkeepers, professionals, and consumers are black. So even if all these people were black, this is still true. So you can't escape it. And I guess that's the thing. To your point about narrative, black capitalism is escapist. It's telling you that somehow you don't have to engage in shit. like you don't have to be a part of this. All you gotta do is support me and my business, and this disappears. And that's just not reality.
And of course, the biggest tragedy of the day is I just saw someone sent me before we got started. Apparently, Uncle Nearest is in default of loans. And to your point, this black-owned business that is producing a liquor to be, it is, at least to your point, the liquor being sipped is also produced locally for the most part, unless they're getting some of that syrup or something somewhere else. I don't know. Now that you showed me that other thing, I gotta find.
They probably are. There's no way everything came from here.
But even if it is, the real point that from that story, as I understand it, to what you're making here, is that the investment money that they're now being threatened with default over is not coming from Black people.
Mm-mm.
This is white banks, white banks and lending whatever institutions, and they're saying so that's the, again, there is, and as soon as any of these 3 million Black businesses that you talked about earlier in the piece want to scale up or challenge their relative position, they got to get investment money from somewhere, and it's not going to be able to come from the same community that they're looking to take advantage of as consumers who are also broke.
Yeah, and it's the same colonial situations you find across the world. So, like, we were talking about that Michael Hudson interview. I mean, we already knew this, but I remember he had said it as well, and I read it in his piece. Like, okay, you can go back even as far as the 1800s, but a country gets their quote unquote independence, and they need to, industrialize. Where they get the money to industrialize. So, what the countries did, like the former quote unquote former colonies, were like, all right, here's a loan, but you're going to be, on the hook, and if you want this loan, you're going to have to sell off all your shit and you can't tax any of our people when they come in because you got to go to them as an investor. So the same colonial relationship that we have as a small Black business here is the same colonial relationship that a so-called new free, country has, where they need capital to actually build up their productive capacity. And they have to get that capital from who? The same people that put them in that position, So that's why when folks want to criticize, folks that take in Africa who might, like in the Sahel, who might want to take a deal from China or Russia, those are simply, on paper at least, better deals. You don't have to like those countries, but you get these narrow nationalist folks like, Dr. Umar. Well, you're doing deals with Russia or China. Who are they getting a loan from? How are they going to build up their ability to actually produce things for themselves? These are things that these folks never can explain because they're just caught up in this Black Wakandan fantasy, that's not tied to how the actual economy works. Like, at some point, you got to figure out, if you want to be a quote unquote sovereign nation, which is what I opened the piece with, talking about how that is why this is appealing to Black people, because it sells sovereignty, it sells independence, it sells things that we all want. And like I said, if Black businesses could do these things, who wouldn't support it? If Black businesses could be sovereign, protect us from the police, make our families in better material positions, like, who wouldn't support it? Like, that's part of what pushes it. But you gotta have actual capital to do that. That is just how the world functions. It is a major contradiction. It's never going to be a clean situation, But I mean, even on our own channel, part of why we're small is because we don't have a bunch of white investors. We're not taking gambling money, to have DraftKings or whatever. We're not pushing a bunch of alcohol on folks. But that is what it would actually take for Black liberation media to have millions of followers. There's going to have to be some kind of sponsorship, even if it's not a direct sponsor, even if it's just that the ads love running on our videos because we do numbers. That's still going to come from companies that are not Black owned. That's just the way it works.
Even, and not to pile on, because I admit I know more about it than I wish I did, but the problem Umar is facing now with all the claims of sovereignty and independence is his relationships with the state of Delaware, and whatever white bank he's not revealing on air is locking up his accounts. So I really did appreciate that you included some reference to how and then we could maybe use this as a segue that I appreciate how you made reference to the concept of sovereignty, and you're saying that this Black capitalism stuff is actually working against our interests or our desire to be sovereign, because it doesn't reveal for us how the economy works, and it locks us right back into not anything sovereign, and then it keeps us conceptually, as I'm interpreting what you're saying, from even coming up with what that sovereignty would look like.
Yeah.
And if you, to your previous point, if we don't know how capitalism works, we can't know how other systems are going to be better. And whatever sovereignty we're striving for is going to be at best limited.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, if you had a question, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna. Just being somewhat mindful at the time, I know we wrote. I did want. I was, inviting a discussion. I shared with you the chapter that I wrote for this forthcoming anthology, and me trying to identify Black capitalism as a narrative, as a set of ideas, as opposed to anything material. Ultimately, with the same sort of point that you're making, as I'm understanding you're making there about sovereignty, that if the narrative is only here to keep us from raising more important questions about what we're trying to do and attempting to do, and really just the question that I just had was, after reading your Kids Corner piece, was that really what I was thinking was, well, first I was like, is it first? First I thought, am I wrong? Because I really like what you've done here. So I was thinking, am I wrong in pushing the narrative level of the claim? And then I went from that to not the opposite, not that I'm solely right, but I went sort of in the middle, thinking that there needs to be a combination of approaches here, that there needs to be something that is saying, look, this is how capitalism really works. This is how the economy works, to the point of how you started. This is what our relationship is to the economy globally and otherwise. Once we get, and then I'm just saying, but then there is also, I think, an important need to focus on the narrative and see how it plays even in the background in producing the consciousness that makes reading what you've written here and elsewhere more difficult to understand or agree with or interpret. So that was it. If I made sense there, that
made sense. Yeah. I don't think. I mean, I found it helpful. I obviously couldn't cite it, or I would have, because you hadn't published it yet, or I would have cited it. But I think it's helpful because, and I'll get to. There's a part at the end, I think, kind of where I think our pieces might come together a bit when I start talking about reification and how capitalism like naturalizes things that are not actually natural. But before I get to that, I think the narrative is important, because I'm thinking about how do people are. The question for me, especially when I put on more of an organizer hat, is like, how are people actually processing these things on a day to day? Like we can get wonky because we nerd out on this stuff, but like, how does the kind of average person like process these things, within their logics? And I think that's where the narrative becomes really powerful. So the average person, like I was saying earlier, may not know anything about the Stevens claim. They may not know anything. They may not even be able to tell you what the Black buying power number is this year. I made a joke about it being a Powerball number that goes up every year, but like it
just sounds great.
Yeah, but like they may not be able to tell you any of that, but there is some kind of general logic that they're carrying that still reproduces it, even if they don't know the ins and outs of everything, because that's hegemony, right? That's how capitalism actually functions. Is it could teach you to think a certain way without having to be an expert on anything, and that's, so I think that's where your point about narrative warfare is important, because it's the narrative that Black people don't support each other, even though we're literally sitting at the Black whatever thing this in the summer. It's the narrative. It's the narrative that we spend all our money on bullshit, even though plenty of stats back up that we actually are some of the best, like the best savers and the cheapest people you ever meet, right? Like,
and the contradiction. Yeah. Well, one of them is that Nielsen will say Black people are loyal. All you gotta do is put like a vague reference to something Black, and they'll come and shop forever.
Yeah.
So to then turn around and say we don't support you, nah, it's like even the white man says we support each other more than anybody. It's like,
yeah, Like it's
Yeah.
just backwards. So it's like it's this narrative that we are not doing the things we're doing in some ways, but to your point, and I think I got at it too, it keeps you away from more radical things because you're like, well, we don't even support each other. So if you can't even get past that point, you any kind of radical, because radical stuff requires support.
Cooperation,
Yeah, like,
collaboration.
yeah, yeah.
How can we
And
have socialism when we are culturally predisposed to not support one another?
yeah, like so you're never gonna get to any of those things. I think I made a point in my piece where it's like it shuts off the black capitalism, like shuts off the smarter parts of our brains and sells liberations to the slower part of our brain, right? Like it cuts off a certain thing. So I think what you get at is this severing that black capitalism continues. The only small, I don't want to say critique, I guess I would more
No,
say
I have a big
addition,
one. This is I got issues with it, but go ahead. Yeah.
but is it's something I think I just found this recently. Are you familiar with the term? I need to pull up the piece so I can explain it all. Compensatory capitalism.
I'm familiar with it existing. I wouldn't say that I've explored it too much.
So in
But yeah,
in compensatory capitalism, if this will pull up Black Agenda reports. Okay, there we go. The only thing is when we say I think we give too much credit to Richard Nixon. This in terms of the narrative. I actually think Nixon used black capitalism as a marketing strategy more, but I think in terms of the actual material, this is where I think looking at the way that see if I can remember how to spell compensatory. Da, 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 da. Or did I actually put that in this book or in this piece or not? If not, I know the book is it. It's in a book called Minority Rights Revolution. But they basically talk about. I'll find it while I'm talking, but that before Nixon pushes black um, capitalism, the Johnson administration is actually the one that puts 3 times the amount of money in the small business administration, and in direct
yeah.
response to the so-called riots in the 60s, they're the ones that actually pump more money. And similar to with the war on crime, they're the ones that actually help start to quote unquote nationalize or professionalize the police before the war on drugs. And Johnson often doesn't get any credits, the
He gets
wrong
a
word.
pass. He gets a
He gets a
pass
pass.
because he signed the civil rights.
Right. But because when you look at Nixon, I know you've seen a lot of black people didn't even want to deal with the black capitalism he was pushing. There were certain folks that did, but a lot of folks, particularly the civil rights kind of wing, were like, we're not messing with that.
Yeah.
But they bought right into the Nixon thing. But when you read into it deeper, I can't remember the name of the guy that was over the small business administration, but he actually calls it compensatory capitalism. And
Yeah.
that's what a lot of these folks are trying to claim is that capitalism can be this we can use capitalism as almost this kind of reparations approach. Right. And that's what people are trying to rebrand black capitalism away from the kind of Nixon just free market, but that there's this reparations aspect of it. So I'm just saying I think we need to talk more about the liberal version of it, right? That more of us actually buy into than Nixon's or Trump, or you always have the clowns that go along with it. But I think that the Johnson version, the liberal version is and they're the ones that put more money behind it. Like you noted, that was one of the criticisms of Nixon is he didn't even really put a lot of money into
Right. He didn't even. Yeah. He didn't even.
So, but
And that's why I was saying it was just the story. It was just the narrative. He didn't even do nothing behind it. He was just saying it. And no, you make it. That's a really good point. And for me, particularly because in both the book and in this chapter, uh, uh, both for good and bad, I'm working with limited time and space.
No,
So
I
so
understand
Nixon
that.
becomes like a really good linchpin. But that's a good point. And then someone else just sent me that the forgot his first name, but Weems is his last name. Who a number of us, I thought you did too, but a number of us have cited him in his colleagues in their criticism of, or their, not criticism so much, but writing about the history of this. And I just got sent something that is another piece from this Weems author, from talking about talking about the 1920s, and saying that there was an effort that I'm not sure I was ever made aware before. I think this would have been Woodrow Wilson, in trying to do something funky with the Black business community as a way of distracting and saying, no, don't rise up after the bloody, summer, red, the bloody summer. No, I can't.
No, it was
1919.
Yeah, 1919.
Bloody summer, whatever it was. But he was saying, don't rebel. Let's get into some business, and then had hosted some Black business. So no, I think you raised a really good point, and that's something I'd like to look at more. And then the other thing that is really bothering me about my chapter that I would want to fix and do more with, at least, is showing more of how the narrative plays. So how would, finding ways to demonstrate some of the points that even you were raising today. Is there a way to, or to what extent has this maybe even been done? Red Summer. Thank you, Elon.
I couldn't get it out.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I don't know. but is there a way to, or what would be the best way to demonstrate the point you're making about what is said at the barber shop, what is said at this or that Black gathering, what is said in Black targeted media space that conveys this narrative, and then how to best, because and I don't even remember what version I sent you, but I tried to quickly throw in another paragraph updating something at the end about how the media, because the chapter just sort of jumps from Nixon to today, for instance.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. I watched your
video.
Okay, yeah. Talked about that. Yeah.
So that kind of stuff, I'd like to, and that would even work to supplement the point you're making here, just actually doing the work of finding how many times the circulating dollar myth is referenced obviously without citation, because there is none. How would we document it showing up in commercial media, stuff like that?
It's hard to quantify that, because hegemony is, even though I agree with the concept, it's hard to quantify, because hegemony is basically saying that people are acting on their own. They think they're acting on their own behalf in many ways, even if they're acting on the behalf of the ruling class or something, by just kind of a natural way. And that's so I'll get to that part where I talk about capitalism having that effect. But I think the way I've been able to quantify it, I don't know if quantify is even the right word, but I think you got to look at more local convenings that people have. I think those are more telling, because that's when you're getting away from just the Black press that maybe is the dominant thing, the local stuff. Here in Indianapolis, there's a Black business block party. It's been going on for nearly 10 years. The guy that's over it now runs 4 different versions of that every season. One's called Melanin in May. One's called Black Business Black Party. Another one's called Blacktoberfest. And there's one during Christmas that he does too. And it's the same event every time. It's just a bunch of Black vendors. And just go to that stuff, because I actually did it once. We did Black Myths at one of those. I mean, I used to go because it's really just like a family reunion. It's the same people every time. So you go to that stuff and you listen to the Black business owner that is an actual vendor, and that's where you really get to see how bad this stuff plays out. You think it's bad online or just on when you actually go and shop and just be amongst people, you really get to see.
Or even just social settings. I mean, I'm even just with at family, something here or there, and there's always somebody I was just one of my in-laws' spouses ended up sitting at the table with me, running down the Black capitalist mythology, and I'm sitting there I'm just trying to have a drink in the backyard, and all of a sudden I'm hearing this stuff about if we just circulate the dollar and support our businesses, but we don't support each other. And I'm like,
yeah, you don't even have to be on that. You could, like you said, you could be having a drink. You're like, bro, I'm not live right now. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Like
That's
when
exactly how I felt. I was like,
yeah,
where's the camera at? I'm not even here for this. I'm in the backyard with a drink. I'm like, come
yeah,
on.
that's really it. Because we did it years ago for Black Myths, and we knew we were engaging contradictions. I wish we could have done it differently, but like one, we didn't fit in there because we didn't even people weren't even clear on what we were selling. We were trying to push the podcast. We had like books, so people thought we were selling books. So we didn't even do a good business job anyway. But I remember somebody came up and tried to hit on one of us. It was Ryan, my co-host, and she was like trying to, but the way she tried to hit on him was through this Black business talk. Like she was like, "How do you not wake up every day thinking about money every day?" Like this was how she was trying. So me and Terrell walked away, like, let Ryan, and you can hold that, bro. But like, she's trying to hit on dude, and she's selling weight. They're selling waist trainers, and she's really literally walked up wearing the waist trainer. And again, I'm not trying to bemoan or trash our people. I'm just saying, if you really want to see like and this is in the hood. That's what I'm saying. This isn't in some black bougie. This is literally on off Martin Luther King, right? Like in Indianapolis.
I don't need to know anywhere.
Yeah.
Any Black community, MLK.
Yeah. So this isn't some like, whatever, like urban league or whatever. This is like right here in the streets where people are living in poverty and folks come in mass to this event. And that's just what it is. When we did the Black Radical Organizing Conference here in Indianapolis, and the one of the vendors, I won't say their names, I want them to come back possibly, one of the food vendors, they were like, yeah, y'all could let me do a workshop next year. I could talk about Black business. And we're like, bro, you don't know what conference you're at right now.
You don't even know where you are. Yeah. Where you at? Somebody get this man a GPS.
But he was like excited to see what we were doing and still thought that was, so again, it's hard to quantify this in a like an empirical way, like in a very like data driven way. But if you just want to, like, if you get a bunch of anecdotes, it starts to make sense. Like, oh, this is really where people are. This is really taking over local communities. So it's not just these bougie celebrities. It's like they are.
No.
This stuff really does trickle down into our everyday local, because local stuff usually not as put together. It doesn't have as much funding. It can be a little janky, but you get to really see where people are. That's why I like going to that stuff, because it tells me, even sometimes it bothers me to sit through it, but like, yeah, like they're going to be on that. And I think that's where you get to see the narrative really play out more so than just watching Roland Martin or something. Because these are people watching Roland Martin, you know what I'm saying? Like these are, yeah.
The only issue would be that if the only benefit to Roland Martin would be that you would have a text that you could document. But you're right. I'm with Leah though on this. I think Melanin May is better as Melanin Madness in March. I don't know if you can convey that to that crew, but I agree with Leah on that one. Melanin Madness in March would be that would be. So listen, just real quick, because I know we've got to start to head toward a close at some point here. Let me invite, if folks are if there's, first of all, if there's anything else you want to make sure we get to. Yeah, please. No, take your time. Don't let me rush you. Take your time.
And then we can hit the chat. If you scroll to
in what?
In the NRP in the piece I just wrote.
Okay.
Because I think this is where it combines I think this combines like the points that we're both making to an extent. I'm just trying to, where is it at? Again, a little bit up from there actually, like a few paragraphs. It should start with right there again. So we dealt with Black buying power again. We don't have to go through everything in this piece because people obviously want to read it, but like, I think this was ultimately what I didn't go into it with thinking about it like this, but this was ultimately what I was actually. Let me see, is that the paragraph? Is that the raw? I already made that point. The next paragraph, the one that says most devastating role of Black capitalism. There it is. So this is the point I think ultimately I got from that I learned from what I was trying to make, was it says the most devastating.
Where did I tried to make it bigger and lost it. There you go.
Yeah. So the most devastating role of black capitalism is to reify the man-made laws of capitalism as if they're seemingly natural to us. And I think this is also what the narrative does. Thus, to the black capitalist, there is no supply chain, no trade deals, no tariffs. Things just magically appear in stores or on stoops. Nobody stocked the shelves or drove the items to the front door. Nobody had to pee in a bottle to deliver them on time. That really happened. Nobody died mining the diamonds for delivery. Nobody was assassinated while organizing a union just west of the country where they were mined. Nah, these horrors are simply the consequence of a natural order that we can do nothing about, nothing at all. They cannot be effectively protested, resisted, or transformed. They just are. Capitalism, therefore, becomes gravity. So, of course, the problem is not capitalism itself, but a lack of black participation in it. Hence, it's cut off
Whoops.
just a little further down. Yeah, right there's good. Hence why buying power is fetishized as an activity completely devoid of our labor. We apparently have no role in how commodities are made, just bought. Our power is vested in what we consume as if we play no role in producing it. Capitalism is natural law. So, of course, consumption is the only path to power. So that is to say, this is pulling from Marx and this idea of this idea of like alienation and and fetishism. And also there was another, I referenced a guy, what was his name in the reified point? Like an old writer from 1923. George Lukács. But he talks about the reification. Reification is when you give things like properties that they don't actually have, and that's what Marx is getting at too. So black capitalism, if you think about it from the standpoint of a narrative, kind of combining both of the points we're making, I think teaches people that all those things are just things that happen that you don't really have any say in. All the stuff I named. And if that's the case, then of course the only thing to do is to buy our way out of it, because all the stuff that happens before that has nothing to do with us. But that's what Marx talks about in terms of the alienation and the fetishization. So black capitalism has a way of, I think, amplifying the way that even beyond how capitalism itself does it. It fetishizes commodities and gives them these powerful forces as if we didn't produce them ourselves, as if we had nothing to do with them. And then it alienates you from your labor literally, because it just teaches you that you're a consumer. It has nothing to do with it. You don't actually produce anything. You're not the one that drove the thing to the door. Like, so you don't feel like you can intervene in that process, because that is actually just natural law. That's stuff that just happens. We ain't got nothing to do with that. I remember when Killer Mike got pushed about Cop City. Well, 90 million, if it's 90 million, we can't, so it's like, when it gets to a certain point, it's like, well, okay, we don't have any say in that. That's too hard. That is not, it's like, it's natural law. And that's what, you quoted Hall. That was something else that Hall talks about, is that the thing about capitalism versus feudalism as others is capitalism has a way of teaching us that the interests of the ruling class are also our interests too. That the interests of the bourgeois is also the interests of the proletariat. So I'm going to act thinking I'm acting in my own interests, even if I'm acting in their interest. That's the hegemonic effect that it has on us. So I think that's what the narrative does. That's ultimately what it does. When you go to talk to folks and you say, let's try something else. Well, labor, man, I can't afford to quit my job. I can't go on strike. I can't.
Or my favorite is, we already did that. As if what you and I are talking about is not itself old as dirt. And this idea of starting a business is some brand new revolutionary radical solutions.
It's like we can point to all these historical moments, and like you said, we're finding new ones where this was pushed on us at a time of black rage rising up, but they're making it seem like we've already tried that. But again, it naturalizes things that actually are social relations that capitalism puts in motion, and therefore, since we are a part of those things, we have the ability to transform them. But it naturalizes those things as if we have no say in that, as if you don't have to go to work today, as if a bunch of us didn't go to work today, it wouldn't have an effect. But somehow a bunch of us buying a thing after it went through this entire production supply chain, after it's been, like I said, pulled from the ground, refined, packaged, shipped, dropped off, put on the shelf. All that happened, but we have nothing to do with that. We are
No,
just
and then
supposed to come in at the very end of it. Like that is there's a certain psychosis there, I think, where it's like it severs you from that process because it doesn't teach you that even happened. It acts as if even though you're a part of it, that you're almost having an out of body experience doing it, and that's what he means by alienation. Like you have no connection to the thing you produce. You don't know once you push it down the assembly line, you just let it go. So you don't get any fulfillment out of it either, is what he talks about. Like there's no
yeah,
real, you know, like so
no
that
sense of like I did this.
yeah,
Yeah, never
right,
mind the benefit from the wealth it creates. And then
right,
just to add on, like when to the and then the other pernicious part of the mythology is that once you've peed in the bottle to make the delivery and done all these other things, you're supposed to still feel like, yeah, but Bezos took the risk. Like I'm trying to be like him.
yeah,
Like he deserves, like I deserve this because
yeah,
I haven't done what he did. So I
yeah,
have to urinate in
yeah.
a bottle to make the delivery time because I didn't have the cultural wherewithal and the financial literacy to do what Bezos did.
Yeah.
And it,
And it's like it works on well, one. I used to work at Amazon. I remember a driver got killed
mm,
delivering. So much for risk. I mean, come on. Like I remember we had to have a moment of silence at the warehouse because a driver got killed by some idiot, when he was dropping it off. So there's that. But it's like the alienation is wild because it alienates you literally, not just I would go further than just labor, just alienate you from reality. So it just alienates you from an entire process. But then I would use this analogy of the stoplight. So some people actually you think this is natural law because you've totally been severed, you buy into it, and then some people think because I might agree with you, Dr. Ball, but our people ain't gonna do this, or we ain't really, like you said, we already tried it, or so it's like the stoplight I'm saying is when some people stop at a stoplight because they might believe in the laws of all of that. Some people stop at a stoplight because there's a ticket. Some people stop at the stoplight because there's just another car coming. It doesn't really matter why you stopped at the stoplight. Like you accept this law as is and you operate, accordingly, whether you bought into the ideology on a mental side or whether you believe it's just you might think there should be a better alternative, but you don't believe people have the ability to overcome it. So you also have like this depression of folks where even if they know or agree with us, they don't believe it can be overcome. So in a way, that's still submitting to it as natural law, even if I can acknowledge that this is that, yeah, you're probably right, like black buying power, but what else can we do? Right. Like it's so it's a depression of even like people feeling like there's hope that we can do anything. I was just there's a pie we're doing coming out Friday, but there was the guest was saying how propaganda is paralysis. Like propaganda has a way of like paralyzing people from feeling like they can act, whether they feel overwhelmed because they believe in the propaganda or they feel overwhelmed because they know everybody else believes in the propaganda. Therefore, what can I do? Like
it's a great point.
that's the strength of the narrative. I think that's what I'm saying. I think where our points kind of come together.
Oh, absolutely. And this will be on Friday's episode. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, this one's actually about immigration. It's ain't our fight. That's the myth.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Um,
I
another
I
point
love how
though.
you do that. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, okay. All right, so we'll definitely have to tune in Black Myths Friday on Black Liberation Media. Hey, folks, any quick comments, questions, queries, conundrums, catechisms, cacophony, calumny, consternation? Please recycle them before we get out of here. And listen, even if you feel like, I know Two Black sort of alluded to the possibility, and although we really didn't, but if you feel like we've gone over enough of this article that you feel comfortable, that you understand it, at minimum, bookmark it and keep it as a quick resource to share with a friend and family member. Because even if you feel like during this episode we went through it, the analysis and the history and the argument well enough for you, please make sure you share this with somebody, because even as you just alluded to, I haven't read through all of the resources, the citations, but there are a lot of citations and a lot of follow up in the piece as well that can add to everybody's intellectual development, political education. So please make sure you you recycle all of that. Keep that bookmark ready to go and recycle it. Circulate True Black's article to someone you care about, who you know needs to know. Let's see, I don't know if this is. Have y'all done any videos about Black people moving to different countries to escape white supremacy? Oh no, I haven't. I'm not aware of that. But specific to this article here, this point, I want to. My bad. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't. No, I haven't wrote that, but I don't know. Did they put escaping in air quotes?
No. Oh yeah, they did. They did. I'm sorry, they did. Sorry, Bobby.
Akita. Yeah. So yeah, that's the thing. It's like it's like you're escaping. Like I think this piece demonstrates that you don't really get out of that orbit.
Where you gonna go?
Yeah, it's more like if you're trying to get away from the sun, you obviously can go to one side of the world and you're not
for
going to
now.
get burned. Yeah, but the sun will eventually rotate to your side of the world. So it's just like you can't really get away from it.
There you go. Circulate the article for 6 hours. Oh, it's happening? People are quote unquote escaping?
Now people are. I mean, people have. I've definitely seen folks talk about that. I've even gotten some questions and Q&As about what do you think about going to Ghana or going to
sure,
wherever. And I would say, well, that doesn't normally work out the way you think.
Nah, talk out to the people. If you are considering Ghana in particular, reach out to those of us in these spheres. We know people, and get some inside information on what that, to the extent. And like someone just told me recently, some of it is the escape, quote unquote, is just knowing that they're suffering the oppression in a different part of the world, and they accept that that's it, and they take that as the win. And if that's the extent, it's kind of like how I feel about my job. Like, I don't feel particularly free at my job, but I do appreciate that it's a mostly Black environment in which I'm suffering by oppression.
Hey, at least you're honest about it, because that'd be my thing. Like, if you just want to say, because a lot of Black capitalism also is just cope, if we're being real. Yeah. It's just cope. You know what I mean? And it's delusional cope, but it's just cope. So I'm saying, if you just want to be honest, like, hey, man, I just feel a little bit better getting exploited this way than I do that way, or at least in this case, I can write the book, or I can make some contribution. Versus if I'm working at a restaurant, I don't have any mental free time. Or at least I'm not dropping bombs on kids somewhere, right? Like these are things I think are important and moral complications we do need to wrestle with. I don't think every job is the same in terms of its death march to, or I was watching a DC, the anti-life equation, right? Like, I don't think everything I don't think every job is the anti-life equation, but I'm just saying, like, it is a job. Like, it's not, we're not.
But it's also like, if you feel like I just want to suffer white supremacy and colonization in Ghana as opposed to the United States, okay. But if you as long as you're not like, I'm leaving white supremacy and colonization by going to Ghana, would be my. And yes, Alex, the article is linked in the show description. So please make sure you circulate it for at least 6 hours. Let's get up to. I think we should get up to the June.
28 days. I was
gonna say, why can't
28 days? Like, that's
circulate this Black capitalist critique for 28 days. Let's get like the Jews. They circulate their articles for 30 days.
Yeah, like 28, 17. 6 hours. That's that y'all.
That's mighty Black of you.
We don't. That's why we don't stick together, man.
You don't have the right mindset.
Yeah, 6 hours. That's the best we can do. 28 days, y'all. Like,
yeah, exactly. For 28 days, click share on the article. Oh my goodness. But the Empire will find you.
I think you're a point though to kind of close out soon, but
sure.
That point in terms of a lot of people are trying to push their cope as liberation, and I just need us to stop doing that. Like, you can be honest that something is a cult. I'm never going to knock somebody for wanting a bit better position, even in a bad situation. Like, I'm not going to knock you. You know, I might have criticisms in general, but I understand the human impulse to want to improve your material conditions even a little bit. Like, I understand. Like, I just moved to a bigger place because I got a kid. Like, obviously, I get why people do these things. Like, this isn't. But I'm not liberating my kid by moving here. I'm just giving, there's just more space for us. Like, it's just, we need to, that's part of the strength of that narrative thing, is it's getting people to put their hopes and dreams into stuff that really are, I think, Ntunde said this, what was he said, he said, there's a catharsis in the mundane. There's this celebration of the mundane, this, that there's something liberating about doing the mundane thing. So now rest is resistance, or or these things that are really
liberation.
Yeah, it's just like, and it speaks to a certain hopelessness, honestly, that people are putting that much hope into, or putting that much, I don't want to say hope, but putting that much emphasis on things that are really just common, like Black joy. Like, Black people ain't never been happy till y'all came up with that. We ain't never had fun, like, it's just, these are copes that folks are trying to dress up, and then when you get called out for it, then you want to be like, well, what, we can't be happy. It's like, yeah, but Black people were always happy to some extent. Like, the criticism of Black people is we joke too much. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what are we talking about? Like, Black people have fun. Like, so it's like these copes that get packaged as something more, I think are the things that's why in the piece we talk about wanting to decouple this stuff. Like, if you want to support Black business, whatever, I do all the time, but I don't think I'm liberating anybody by doing it. I just like getting my hair cut right, or I like that jewelry, or I like those clothes or whatever. But like, the way that we are packaging liberation with cope needs to stop. Like, that's where we're really getting, and it just keeps spinning out of control even further.
I can't think of a better way to end. Listen, this has been great. Folks, please, again, check the link in the show description. And no, I have not read Decolonizing Wealth. Who's that? Do you know this work?
No, and I'm if I'm being honest, I'm very skeptical of anything that has decolonizing.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Poncho, what you recommending, man? We need to do better than that. Decolonizing, nah, man. But I'd be interested. If I'll look into it. But yeah, nah. Everybody, yes, at least 30 days of circulating two blacks article. 30 days,
man. Before it leaves the community, So white people can't read it for 30 days. Gotta stay in the community for. This shit is so silly.
Oh my goodness! Exactly. Oh my goodness. Anyway, please, the link is in the show description. Two Black, thank you very much for the work and coming through. And again, this is my definitely one of my favorite podcasts, the Two Black and Not Black Enough podcast, right here at I Mix What I Like. Peace to you, because I know you're willing to fight for it. And to those in the chat, as Fred Hampton used to say, please continue to support this platform, Black Liberation Media. Catch all of the work being done. Literally share Two Black's work, everybody. This is what we really got to find ways to. And peace. If you're willing to fight for it, like Fred Hampton used to say, we'll catch you next time around here with more.
And what do you sacrifice?
Calm. Kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago for which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight. set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything, 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 everything.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.